Hi, welcome to this second installment of Constructive Conversations. I came up with that title extremely quickly last time and it seems to have stuck. And a lot of people really like the spontaneous conversations and the information that came out of that. My Sunday shows, which are available at windowsontheworld.net every Sunday, 9:30 p.m. Please subscribe on Spreaker and Odyssey, by the way. We only use YouTube for promoting shows or these conversations, which at some point will be erased because we've had community strikes on these and we're sort of hanging on YouTube by the thread, a very tenuous thread. So please subscribe to us on Odyssey and Spreaker. And we also have a Discord channel. I don't know how long we're going to have that, but you can get involved. And tonight I'm going to be talking to two people who go on our Discord server quite regularly and have very interesting things to say. One of them's been on the show before, Gonzalo Carrera, a musician from North London. And we now have Neil, who's from South Wales, and he's going to be talking about some interesting stuff, including the mind virus. We've covered a lot about propaganda in our recent shows. Do please have a look at those. The last one was called The Propaganda Channelers, and that followed two shows called The Fact Killers. And one of them was a live stream, and one was a kind of information stream on our Sunday show. So we keep the information coming out, and most people who listen to our shows find it useful and they can apply the information, and that's the main important thing. So I'm going to bring in our guests tonight, and we've got Neil and Gonzalo. So Neil, could you just introduce yourself to the listener and the viewer out there?
All two of them.
We've got quite a few.
My name is Neil Cripps. Born and bred in the Rhondda Valley, South Wales. I'm an ex-coal miner. Been involved in my own version of research since we lost the miners' strike in 1984-85. I'm currently living in Pembrokeshire, in Haverford. I've settled here recently, and I run my own little business, and I'm a fire risk consultant. That's about it.
Yeah, we've been talking on and off for about a year, I think. We had a really in-depth conversation. I think the first time we were talking for quite a long time about the inability of people to actually see through things and the problems that you have in trying to get information across. And I think that was why we're having this conversation tonight. And you've also pointed out a lot of things that I knew about in the past, but you've put some details in as far as your fire risk assessments go in some of the buildings and places I used to know in Waltham Forest. And you had some interactions with that council, which were very interesting, because I was looking at some paperwork from a couple of years ago, and I won 2 court cases against Waltham Forest Council over a form that was sent out, which created fraud. I won't go into it tonight, otherwise I'll be talking about it for hours. But the point is, they used every dirty trick in the book to try and stop me winning that court case, lying, obfuscating, basically failing to supply evidence and concealing evidence. And this is quite a common thing. And one of the big reasons why I started to look into local area Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 policies. And that was a very long time ago. That was in 2007, which is about the time I met Gonzalo. So, yeah, it'd be interesting, actually, Neil, if you give us your view of dealing with councils like Waltham Forest.
Well, in all honesty, with my dealings with Waltham Forest have been very limited because I'm working through a subcontractor anyway.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you mention your involvement with them in 2007, because that was around the same time that I was involved with the People's United Community.
Right.
Who you know was John Harris, and
yes,
that organisation was gathering a bit of momentum nationally. We were on the verge of running out the national tour, you know, and but one thing led to another, and John and myself never saw eye to eye on a few issues. Everyone knows what John claimed himself to be, which I didn't buy into, but it's interesting that was happening around the same time, you know.
We might be good to actually fill in with a bit of exposition there for people who don't know who John Harris was. He died quite a few years ago, and he was taking talks around the country.
Was it?
Yeah, about that time, I think. I can't remember exactly, Neil. So much has happened since then. But I went to see some of his talks, and some of the stuff he was talking about was very credible, and some of it wasn't. And I think we have a follow-on from that kind of thinking now. in that you've got these people talking about common law without actually realizing what it is and getting involved in all sorts of things which aren't going to go anywhere. And that was a big thing that happened at the time, because we all started off very positive about it and trying all this stuff out. And it is fascinating. But what you actually have to find is the remedies and solutions. You can't keep bashing your head against a brick wall. And so I'm really glad you brought that up, because it was quite an exciting time, wasn't it? You know, when people started looking at this whole idea of what they, I mean, it's kind of been tainted now, really, this idea of real personal sovereignty and knowing exactly who you are within the system. I think that's really helpful, but people just don't seem to apply the right tactics, which is why I invented common law Malcolm. So yeah, have you got any recollections of that time that you'd like to share?
Well, I distinctly remember discussing with John at the time in his home in Hemel Hempstead, trying to get him to understand that the only way that's going to be effective is if every individual arrives at the palace gates with their own affidavit. Yeah,
That's
but
right.
John was adamant that he was going to do it on his own, which is what he did, and all power to him for doing that. But bringing that back to today, my attitude is, and my opinion is, the same process will have to apply for us to stop the momentum of the steam train running through us all now in this country. Unless everyone buys into defending to resolve it, it's not going to stop anything. And the mask wearing, the exemption cards, the vaccines, the boosters, you name it, it's all year. So for us all to turn up in Trafalgar Square this Saturday, where there's 120,000 of us or 200,000 of us, it's only the majority of people that's going to stop the momentum. You know,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
I've been part of them marches in Trafalgar Square and elsewhere in the country, and I love feeling part of that. Same as I did love what happened during the miners' strike, as tough as it was, and the Fleet Street Murdoch dispute. I think it was 87, 88.
Okay, different times.
I've always loved being part of something that defends what's right and wrong.
Yeah.
But the reality is, unless the majority, there's 68 million of us on this island, people tend to forget that we're actually on an island. This is our island, our country. And the only way that we're going to stop the momentum, you know, you need at least 20 million, 25 million of adult human beings standing up together or sitting down together, wherever the process would be to stop the momentum.
Yeah, I became increasingly aware of how everything was steered, and some people get completely the wrong idea about what I'm talking about half the time, because they think it's negative to point this out. Of course it's not. It's positive to point it out, because the whole point about this system is it's there to energy harvest you. The whole thing is about sending you around in a circle so you never get anywhere. That's the old form of communist propaganda.
Vicious circle.
The UK, it's no different. The UK is a more communist country than ex-communist countries. But it's this technocratic system which involves everybody. The communitarian thing is basically a huge deception. People can't see through that because they're creating this consensus, like what you're saying, you know. So it's very difficult to even know what opposition there really is.
And this is my opinion on revolution.
Yeah.
Because that's all revolution is another circle on the same loop of captivity. Because we're not just slaves on this island, we're all captive. We're in an open prison. So my attitude is, if you support and endorse another revolution or a revolution of some description, you're just going to go round in another loop of control. It's just the belt on the wheel of revolution is adjusted left or right. So what we need to do is to stop the wheel, step off the wheel united as a human race, and walk in the direction of our own evolution, of our own doing. And we create our own future from it.
I think that thing about evolution is really interesting. Yeah. Because evolving rather than evolution.
Nothing's changed, do it?
No.
That's
nothing
right.
has changed.
I think the main problem, Neil and Mark, is that, I'm sure you agree, we are in a war. We know, the three of us and many of the listeners here, they know we are in a war, but people, they are not conscious of that. And the problem is people that are still comfortable getting their salaries or furlough or whatever. until something really happens, really dramatically, a lot of people they lose jobs, they lose properties, nothing is going to change. That's right. Or they
Well, I
lose.
think it's quite interesting that we were talking about this the other day. I don't know what you think about this, Neil, but I think that the so-called middle classes have now been conditioned to such an extent through the propaganda that if they had to give up their houses, I think they probably would. I think they probably would do it. And a lot of people disagreed with me, but because of what I've seen and the engineering of society in the past 10 to 15 years, I think it's highly probable that all those people have invested everything they've got in those houses and everything they've got in this belief system, that basically they are somehow privileged to be in it and the state works for them. They don't work for the state, and they've been basically put into narcissism and a mind virus, which brings us into talking about that. But I think it's very likely that when this debt reset happens, that many will just go along with it. I think they really will. Well, and that's why I think it's very important to try and form proper alliances or do your own thing outside it as much as you can. And that's all you can do in a way.
Well, the part of it, Mark, as well, and Neil, is the Stockholm syndrome is so high. I think we spoke about this before. There are some families out there. There's been some victims, people, they die. And as you know, they say, so-and-so had an accident early in the morning. Accident. We rush into the hospital, the person died. And these families, they belong to this person. And not only him, many like that, many examples. Family members, work colleagues, they wouldn't say, they wouldn't question, they wouldn't go, well, why did he die? Was he cancer? Was he a heart attack? Nothing. They rather not say anything.
No, this is kind of interesting, isn't it? This is like they're paralyzed with fear about the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's what right. I get off. What do you think, Neil?
I've been having this conversation with people the last 6 weeks, and it was only because I don't watch mainstream TV if I can avoid it. If I want to watch something, I'll choose it, I'll record it, I'll watch it later. The TV happened to be on and it was running, and the adverts come on and it was Cancer Research UK, right? And it shocked me to the core. I was aware of it, but to hear it as a part of an advertisement asking for more and more money off us again, right? Which is, in my opinion, is just another form of taxation.
Yeah.
Any charity.
That's
another
right.
form of tax, right? So I flipped my mind back to when I was a kid growing up I was born in 66. So, you remember the summer of 76, it was fabulous, right? No one had anything, everyone was poor. No one had anything to pinch off anyone else. The lifestyle was completely different. And for anyone to die of cancer then, it was unheard of. We had one girl in our school who died of leukemia quite young, and that sent a shockwave through the Rhondda Valleys, right? And I still remember it now. And the only other people that you heard died of cancer would be old age pensioners, 80, 85, 90, right?
Yeah.
And natural causes, what have you. And it would go down as cancer. And then in the late 80s, I remember the statistics were 1 in 35 of us during our lifetime will be touched with cancer.
Yeah.
Now it's 1 in 2. 1 in 2. Cancer Research UK, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So where's the evolution of the human race there then? Where's the progress?
It's the lack of being able
Where's the progress?
To think positively, yeah.
No. We understand how and why that's happened. The managed decline of the human immune system.
Yes.
And this ties in directly with what's going on now.
Of course.
Because everything that we eat, drink, has been doctored by them to weaken the immune system to such an extent that there's virtually no strength left in a man or woman to defend themselves or their children, right?
That's right.
Because the little bit of energy they've got, the middle class as well, the little bit of energy they've got, they use to rest, get up the next day and go again.
Of course, yeah.
They are like a slave.
Well, worse than slaves. You're captive prisoners.
Yeah.
And you pay them for the privilege. For every pound we earn as a human being, we pay 51 pence back into the system.
That's right.
Yes,
exactly.
And then we spend the other 49 pence in Asda, Tesco, the Garden Centre, or B&Q.
Yeah.
And here we go again. That's the loop of our existence.
I think a lot of this comes down to the way things are framed, Neil, because someone just put in that my highly pessimistic view that people would give their houses is not based on reality. But that's not exactly what I'm saying. It won't be framed like that. it'll be framed that they will still live in the houses, but they will have a debt amnesty, which came out of this Canadian document. Because
A
what's
great
going to
reset.
happen,
Yeah.
and this will happen, inflation's going to go through the
Zero
roof.
reset.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what will be slowly put into the press is that home ownership is declining, and it will catch on. It's a bit like the way that they've been using cyclists to turn against motorists. It's all the same stuff. So they want to get rid of cars and trap people. So they promote cycling and they undermine people who drive cars, and they make it very difficult to drive cars. And it started off with road humps and 20-mile-per-hour zones, and then it's just progressively got worse. I tried saying this, but people can't seem to see the end game of where it goes. So if you can't see the end game, then you're not going to be able to do anything for yourself about it. But I think it's this concept of ownership as well, because that's the most important thing. And it's
this
idea.
illusion, isn't it?
It's an illusion, because obviously when you buy a house, you don't buy it, you don't own it, you never own it, because you're going to die and leave it behind. So you don't own it, you can't take it with you, you don't own anything,
You just
can't
pass
take
the debt
anything
on to your children.
Yes,
that's right. So basically what you're doing is you're paying off all this interest, and you pay for the thing 2 to 3 times over, and then at the end of your life you die and it goes to somebody else. So you don't own it, and that is the deception. That is the big deception that people get into with this mortgage thing. Well, it's not as prevalent in other countries either, because the ownership of property in other countries is often quite a lot easier, and it's a lot easier to build your own houses in other countries. In the UK, it's extremely difficult. Yeah. But the whole point is that what I'm talking about is social engineering. I'm not talking whether it's positive or negative. I'm talking the way people actually react to what they're told. When something's framed in a way that they can virtue signal about and feel worthy, they will do it.
Yeah. Whatever it takes, whatever. Well, in Spain, for example, Neil and Mark, in the days, I mean, fair enough, I used to prefer left wing, but to me, they are all the same. In the days of Franco, we spoke about this, me and Mark, when there was a dictatorship, far right, supposed to be. Now, people that will pay the mortgages in 10 years, he kicked off the country, all the Freemasonry, all the secret societies. He didn't want to know about communism, right? That's why he won the Spanish Civil War. Now, when he died, they wanted to bring another political leader in the same kind of wavelength. The King of Spain came, Juan Carlos, and he put the democracy. That's when the problems they arrive. The socialists they came, the communists they came, people that will end up paying a mortgage in 40 years. If you inherit a property, it will be so expensive to the point now the young people, they don't want to know about having your own property. They prefer to go and rent. And the same thing has been happening with France and Germany. Apparently, France and Germany is so complicated to buy a property that people, they just can't be bothered. Although the tenants, are very well protected. But they've done it so well. For example, in my region in Galicia, if you own a house with a big plot of land, I think you were saying it's the same thing in California, Mark. The local council will force you to clean that land, to clean it within 3 months. Otherwise, they give you a fine of 6,000 euros. You don't have the money, you're going to go and have to give the property away. It's been happening for the 10 years already. So, yeah, it's just...
Well, when I went over to Spain, it was about 10 years ago now. It was after all that property crash, basically, where loads of people had lost their property. There was still possessions in a lot of the flats that I went to look at. And in one of them, they'd taken the windows out. They took everything with them. You'd go in the flats. There's no door handles. They've stripped everything out. They've even stripped the wire out, because they had to take everything they could just to get out of there, because they'd just been thrown out because they defaulted.
Yeah. It's horrendous. So it's the same thing we were talking before. It's the Great Reset. Own nothing, be happy. Well, we told, especially you, Mark, you've been telling this to people for years, and they were laughing, right? They were thinking...
Well, it was interesting, Neil, because when I saw that totally re-engineering of that particular area, then it started in other areas. It started in North East London with a thing called Mini Holland. And there was 3 boroughs who won this Mini Holland thing. And one of them was Waltham Forest in North London. The other was Enfield, and the other one was Kingston upon Thames. And they all had these cycle lanes put in, the roads closed, and basically you couldn't get anywhere. My friend had a restaurant, and he had to make deliveries in the village. He gave up because you couldn't get down the roads. And I would be driving down a road, and there'd be no indication. And I was in a transit van in a narrow road, and you just come across one of these tree planters, and you have to back up hundreds of yards. It's just absolutely insane. And there was no public consultation.
Yes, exactly what's been happening to me lately. So I don't know the area at all. You boys live
Yeah.
there. So I'll pump in the postcode for my next job, and off I go, dead end. Yeah, or I've gone down another road and I've got another fine. And that's
Yeah.
happened. I even thought of getting myself an electric scooter because I was being overtaken by them all the time anyway.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A friend of mine was telling me, Mark and Neil, how the cyclists are becoming very aggressive in London as well. They think they
Well, they're
own
being
the,
empowered through the press. I mean,
yeah.
there was some, I think it was in The Guardian today, which is
Oh
the
yeah.
bastion of
Of
globalism.
course.
And there was this fella who looked with an incredibly irritating face with a camera on top of his helmet. And he said that he's now become sort of a vigilante and he's trying to take cars off the road. Okay. And this is a story in The Guardian. And what this fella did was there was a queue of traffic. So he cycled along this queue of traffic. And of course, they're moving barely. And he's looking for people on their mobile phones and taking pictures of them in their cars.
That's just made
You
math.
know, but
Complete.
this is what I'm talking about with them giving up their houses. If they're going to do stupid things like that and be that petty minded, they will virtue signal for the common good until they've got a bullet in the back of the head. And that's not my opinion. That's happened before, hasn't it?
That's how, yeah. Well, it's the same thing with the treatment as well. Something that things that they haven't been tested and stuff like that. They are prepared to go and do whatever they tell them to do, even though the government is not liable, the World Health Organization is not liable. If you have a stroke, winding up on a wheelchair, they won't take any responsibility. And they ask you, have you done this? Have you done that? Well, no. And they look at you as if you are mad, of course. So yeah, it's pretty obvious that it's a mind virus, like you said, Neil. They are complete hypnotized, yeah.
That brings us on to the mind virus, Neil. So tell us about your introduction to that, because we've had a few conversations about this subject, haven't we?
Well, the first time I came across any definition of it was in the Nag Hammadi scriptures, when it was mentioned about the Anunnaki and the Archons.
The Archons,
So
yes.
that,
The leaders, the rulers. Yeah.
And that encouraged me to look a bit deeper into that. It was a number of years ago. And I know it's just another book. You know, we've got to accept where it's come from. Did it come from where it came from? You know, you remain open-minded about the facts, right? But it was something that I had never read before, I'd never heard of. So that piqued my interest. So I looked into it a bit deeper, and that's when I discovered them what's known as, in the Native American world, is Wetiko or Wetiko. So I looked into that, only to discover that there was every indigenous population, whether you be Aboriginal, Mayan, whatever, or they all had their own name for it. In Mexico, I think it's known as Chitahuru. In the Arabic countries, it's known as Jinn, but spelled DJINN.
Yeah, Jinn.
So and apparently that's where the alcohol name for Jinn comes from, because it's an evil spirit. Right?
Spirits, yes, that's right. Yeah,
because the word, if I remember rightly, the word alcohol is a rough translation of an Arabic word al-ghul,
Yes.
is evil spirit.
Yes,
a spirit. Yeah.
So that took me into down that pathway a little bit deeper, and then I stumbled across a guy named Paul Levy, who wrote a book called Awakening in the Dream, and his experience of Wetiko was from a very abusive father. So that piqued my interest even further, because that was my childhood. I had a very abusive childhood. So I wanted to understand the concept a little bit deeper. And that's when I read that book. And as I watched things unfold and the managed decline of society since the 80s, because this is real history, real-time history.
Yeah.
Everything else has been written, distorted, manipulated, or represented, reproduced, whatever you want to say.
As we know.
As we know. But my experiences from, the late 1960s that I can remember through the 70s, 80s to now is real time as far as I'm concerned. So having physically witnessed the direct attack on every element of British society since the miners' lost the miners' strike, you name it, they've been attacked, whether it be police, nurses, doctors, university lecturers, lollipop women, whatever you want, teachers, farmers. Every aspect of society has been hammered to its knees since the miners lost the miners' strike. And they've used the mind virus as part of the control mechanism to drive people so far to their knees with such a profound element of fear within. People are petrified. You can see it in them.
Yeah.
So
And
if you tell them to put a mask on, you tell them to put a mask on, they put two on.
Yes.
This
or
is
three.
how weak we've been.
Or even three.
But this is this is how weak we've become as a race on this island of ours. So no matter what they say, we are so passive now. I have never witnessed or experienced the level of apathy that you feel now wherever you go.
Yeah.
Whether it's London, Cardiff, up north, wherever. Everyone is exactly the same frame of mind. And this is the mind virus, Fatico. Where it turns
Well, it's communitarianism, really. I call it the same thing.
If you want to take it outside of the mind.
Yeah.
But the division is within your own mind.
Of course it is.
Because once you realize that everything that we are afraid of losing is actually worthless.
Exactly. Yeah? Well, I told people, Neil, many people, parents that I teach the kids, most of the Eastern Europeans, I told already this to Mark, they are very aware. People from Bulgaria, Russia, Romania, they know what's going on. There's only one particular parent that I still do the lesson online with the poor kids. I explained to this woman, and I know her for 12 years. These kids, they're like nephews to me. I explained to this woman, look, I've been going to people's houses already for 1 year and a half. I never got sick. They never got sick. The kids, they never got sick. Impossible. No, let's do it online. Let's do it. And they asked me, have you got vaccinated? No. Have you ever worn a mask? No, never. And I'm fine. They don't want to listen. They will say to you, it doesn't matter. You might feel great, but maybe inside you got the virus already. It's like a bloody science fiction movie. It's like the Omicron, or they believe whatever they say to them, they will go and believe it.
Well, this is what I've been saying, you see. I see it, and it is a mind virus, but it's also the social engineering, isn't it, Neil? That's the thing. The social engineering has created it.
But that ties in with the propaganda, doesn't it?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
The propaganda is the weapon of the social engineering to maintain the spell over humanity. So it holds our mind virus exactly where it needs to be to just maneuver it left and right and keep pointing in the trajectory that they are controlling.
Yeah.
Well, I think
all you have to do is step back from it. You step back from it, right? And you just smile and laugh at it, and your whole perception internally changes, because everything that we are convinced of being afraid of losing is not worth losing your soul for. If you want to term it, I think
it's divided the person, the whole entity of the person is basically divided internally, and that's an old trick, really. I mean, communism did that to a point, but I think my point in the bigger scheme of things is that the new system has surpassed all that, because even in dictatorships, people had their own minds, but because of what's happened to the education system, and because of the way that global propaganda has come in through the Sustainable Development Goals, which is basically what makes people virtue signal for genocide. Well, those things have come in since about 2010, and that's why I always bring that up, because it's extremely important, because before public officials were much more approachable and sensible. Whereas now they're completely intolerant.
What happened just before 2010, Mark? We had that recession.
Yes, of course. 2008, 2009. Yes.
So anyone who survived that recession was like, "Oh my God, I got away with that," and I was one of them, because I've been running a small business since 1997. And I nearly lost everything then. Everything that was material. So a lot of people did. So it was a precursor to what they're hammering into us now, 10, 11 years later.
Yeah.
Because that level of fear was put into the majority then. Losing their jobs, redundancies again.
Yeah.
Right?
The-
Everyone
yeah.
having to take pay cuts, shorter hours.
I remember all the middle class, they were very scared back then in Walthamstow. I remember we're going to lose the house, blah, blah, blah. And then everyone was fine. But yeah, you are absolutely right. But I noticed, Neil and Mark, about 10, 12 years ago, that's absolutely right, Mark. Everyone was very approachable about talking about politics, about talking about Brexit, nationalities, different ethnic groups, different religions. Everyone could have a discussion. While all these people, they believe the propaganda, the narrative, they are like possessed. They're like, it's like a spell, like you said before, Neil. It's like
It is. It's a
they can't
possession.
reason it at all. Yeah, it's a possession. That's right. It's a spiritual war, 100%. I mean, a friend of mine was telling me she's got a great friend, I think, somewhere in Eastern Europe, very, very awake woman. And basically, she had the double treatment, the double treatment. And he was telling her, well, don't you find it strange that there are many people, they die of COVID, they say, something that still haven't proved that the virus hasn't been isolated, etc. But anyway, they say they have died of COVID and they have been double vaccinated. And she went, yes, you are right. It's very strange. However, I have my double dose of the treatment and I'm perfectly protected. So, and this is a person that is very intelligent, used to be very intelligent, but it's like they are not thinking straight. It's like they say one thing and then 1 second later,
Contradictory.
yeah, that's right. It's unbelievable, man. It's just
Gons. I know of a woman this week, yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Who had COVID over the New Year, right? She was tested positive.
Yeah.
She's done her isolation. And her attitude was yesterday, if she hadn't had her double vaccination, she'd have been much, much worse.
That's right. Yeah.
Thinking, them words are coming out of your mouth there.
Yeah.
And this is same person was dead set against the validity of the lateral flow test.
Yeah.
Right? Swore by the PCR test. Now they've withdrawn the PCR test and changed from 10 days isolation to 7. No. Lateral flow test for me, spot on every time.
Yeah, of course.
So their mind virus will justify and enable them
anything
to change to suit the narrative.
And also it's
their weakness.
Yeah.
It's to justify the weakness.
The weakness,
right?
That's right. Yeah, because the ego sorry.
Because they haven't got the strength, they refuse to look within, they refuse to even look at an alternative narrative. Right? I call it the least path of resistance.
Yeah.
So they'll take the jab rather than research, explore, defend, justify, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And then it goes. Which arm do you want?
Yeah. Well, it's quite interesting because this level of hypnotism, I think, is what we're talking about. And that really does portray the level of hypnotism, because sometimes you ask people why they've had the treatment and they can't really tell you. They say, well, they want to travel. I said, you don't need one to travel in most places.
Yeah.
And then you're still going to have this PCR test and all the rest of it. But I mean, I think the surface confusion that's being created around the whole thing makes people want something very simple in their mind. So then what they do is they give them a very simple analogy of what is good for them. And so basically you bamboozle people all over the place. So they're looking for the solution from the people who are actually confusing them. And that's basically how a lot of KGB type propaganda worked. And we've talked about that on quite a few shows. The last few shows have really gone into that because I think it's such an important thing. There's a very good book by Jack Ellul, which you can actually download on the free books page at winnersontheworld.net. And it's called Propaganda. And that was written in the early 70s. And he says in that something very important, that those who are within academia are the most susceptible to propaganda. And of course they are, because they're the people who are pushing the climate change issue. They're the people who are pushing the whole thing. And all these government ministers.
Left brain training.
Yeah, well, it's basically just to parrot and repeat, and that's what happened with education. If you listen to John Taylor Gatto, if you listen to some of the shows we've done, I've gone into this, Alexander Inglis, who was funded by the Rockefellers and wrote the principles of secondary education. The Rockefellers and Carnegie's funded this education system. And he said the whole purpose of secondary education is to direct and prevent change within an individual. That was in 1918.
Very progressive, yeah.
Okay. Have we ever heard of something called the Welsh Knot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about it, Neil.
Yeah?
Go on.
Yeah.
Because this is another typical example of it, right? Of the social engineering and the mind control. We all know we've got a left and right brain hemisphere, right? Your right side stimulates the left.
For the
left
piano,
stimulates the right.
for the piano is very good actually, yeah.
Right. Okay. So in Wales, when our forefathers fought for education, same as all the working class did over the UK, the established order decided, okay, if you want education, we'll give you education, but it'll be the education we want you to have, not what you want.
Yes.
Our forefathers regarded that as a victory. So what they did was, they didn't want the Welsh language to be spoken in Wales. And this is why you saw it's reviving now in South Wales, but in West Wales it's first language, North Wales first language. But in South Wales, what they did was migrated English teachers over, and the only language you were allowed to speak in the class was English. And if you were caught speaking Welsh, a rope with a big knot was put over your head, and you were made to stand outside at the front of the class after having 6 of the best, cane, whatever it would have been. And the only way that you could get rid of that Welsh knot before the end of the day, because you'd have another 6 of the best, was to grass someone up, one of your schoolmates, by catching them speaking Welsh, and the Welsh knot was passed over. So then his schoolmate was brought up, he would have 6 of the best, he'd wear the knot, and so on and so forth. But the other thing they did was, they wouldn't allow left-handed writing.
Okay.
So what they used to do was tie the left hand behind the child's back and force him to become right-handed.
That goes right back into superstition, though, doesn't it? That goes right back into... it goes back about 1,000 years, that probably a lot before, but certainly...
It's part of folklore, isn't it?
Yeah,
yes.
you will be like... You will be like a witch or a wizard, yeah.
Yeah, they understood the social engineering then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was physically forced out of the children of the South Wales valleys.
Well,
it's reviving now, and both my daughters are Welsh speaking fluent, and they teach in Welsh, so I'm quite proud of that, you know.
Wow.
But yeah, so going back to the left brain and right brain scenario, the left brain, as we all know, is the logic. It's the part of the brain that's easier to control, and you're less likely to resist or question.
Yeah.
Especially authority, you know?
Yeah.
Lavender's just put in, they forced me to write with my right hand as I was left-handed. I don't know who forced it, but it must have been at school, I suppose. But yes, it's an interesting one.
If you picture an typical American classroom, the desks are molded, and you can only go into the desk from the right. So your right arm is naturally then resting on the desktop. So your left arm is loose. So you can't write to your left hand.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, with the piano, you have if you play classical, or if you play on your own, or there is a band that don't have a bass player, you're gonna be forced to be very, very agile with your left hand, which is great. And you tend to use both parts of the brain as well, Neil, which is very good for the kids. And also, if some pianist was left-handed, they will push him to be right-handed. Actually, that's interesting as well. Yeah,
but it's not very good for bass players, right? Because I've been trying for 20 years and I'm still shit.
Paul McCartney was left-handed. He's left-handed, right? And Jimi Hendrix as well with the guitar. Yeah. No, but it's fascinating, definitely. Yeah, but it's like with the music education, guys. It's like, in the last 20 years, there is this push about practicing with the metronome or with the click track. Now, any kind of great music, classical or rock or jazz, there are moments the music goes slow or suddenly accelerate. Now, if you have a bloody machine all the time doing that, it's okay to know if you play a piece of music that is complicated, to know if you play the right speed, especially when you are so young. Everyone tends to be faster, or if you play in a concert, everyone, because of the adrenaline, tends to be faster. Now, but if you do that all the time, you become like a robot. There's a great music educator called Jeff Berlin, amazing bass player. He was a teacher in Berkeley. He posted a video I was totally agree with him. Before he said he was against the metronome, practicing with the metronome. Guess what? I tried to find the video this year, disappeared. It's called. They took it down basically.
Well,
So,
yeah, I mean, all that is very important because obviously you learn fluidity and you have
yeah,
to be able to improvise. And I think that's another thing that you've seen diminishing, isn't it, Gonzalo? I mean,
yeah,
the whole idea of jamming and improvising and basically winging it, but with a good idea of what you're doing. And if you know
yes,
what you're doing, then we used to do that all the time. You know, you
yeah,
can pick things up on the spur of the moment and you can do them.
yeah,
Obviously, they do get a bit better with rehearsal, but some things don't. And that's the interesting thing about it. I mean, with some of the stuff that I've done over the years, and it ties into this sort of thing as well, is that
yeah,
I used to do quite a lot of preparation, then just completely wing it. But if you've got the preparation and you've got the technique behind you, then you can do all that. So yeah, you're right. I mean, you need a certain amount of discipline to do things. I know a few people, and I think you know who I'm talking about, who had very bad timing. You know, good musician, but his timing was all over the place, and it's
yeah,
and unless you can solve that, then you're
yeah.
never going to get past that
Yeah,
stage. You know?
that's right. It's a very natural thing. The same with singing. I mean, there are people they hardly practice any vocals. Obviously, in Wales you have great singers, definitely Neil. But for example, the Eagles, the Beatles, all those harmonies, the Platters, the Ronettes, all those harmonies, they just were natural. They are there. Obviously, it helps a bit of theory, but sometimes too much technique can kill, to be kind of imaginative, to be creative, etc., etc. And this is what's happening in the health services, in the sports, etc., etc. People they become very good on what they do, but they don't question or reasoning or have critical thinking against anything. I mean, there is a nurse I was talking today, lovely woman, and I said to her, "Well, they say in Spain the pandemic could finish soon," and she goes, "Oh, really?" And I said to her, "Well, we talk about COVID." I said, "Well, the COVID-19 they never gave the isolation according to the Cripps postulates," and she goes, "What is that?" And this is a nurse. She didn't know what the Cripps postulates they
Well,
are.
they only have their unlimited
That's right.
kind of view of things. This is where you get the Jobsworth, isn't it? The
Yeah,
fella who knows everything but knows nothing about how to solve anything or really do
yeah,
anything of any
yeah.
importance. And
Exactly.
that's why
That's
they call
right.
them Jobsworths, because basically what they do is they restrict your ability to move within a framework. So they'll say you
Yeah,
can't do that or you can't do that. Why?
yeah,
Well, it's health and safety. Or say, well, it's only over there. I can walk there from here. No, you can't do that. But you can
yeah,
watch me. You can watch me walking over there. I'm not going to fall over. And they go, no, you can't do that. And this is the sort of thing. It starts with this kind of indoctrination to stop people from actually being able to rationalize things themselves.
yeah.
So it means that the responsibility is always taken away from the person. It's like, oh, it's more than my job's worth. I can't let you do that. They'll do this to me. You see.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I could never stand that. Which is why I
See,
work,
fear.
yeah. I mean, it's all kind of similar stuff,
Fear.
but I tend to go into it in a much more sort of deep way and look, at all the different aspects of it. And I think the propaganda thing is extremely important, and it does tie in because basically people are under a spell. They definitely are, and I think that spell is as much prevalent with people who think that they are aware of what's going on, and as much as those that they perceive as not to know what's going on, if you know what I mean. So in other
Yeah.
words, you've got this sort of alternative media, which is basically just reflecting what is fashionable.
Yes.
And they tend to go into just certain things. It's like it's why this common law thing's really taken off again, because that
Yeah.
was just implanted. That was a complete job done by people who were working in the banking industry. It's great for them because it just means there's more mistakes made by people and more property to be taken.
That's
And
the
more
problem.
opportunity
Yeah.
for business. And that's why I've always been very suspicious about people who work for property development getting informed in any form of sort of agit movement or protest or
Activists.
any kind of activist movement, which they did. And I've had 20 years experience looking into that. And then these idiots will turn around and call you a shill and all this. I think it's quite appalling, the state of so-called alternative media. That's why I did the 4 types of media. You've got the mainstream, you've got this gatekeeping stuff like GB News and Talk Radio, which pretends to be the voice of reason, a bit like that Alex Belfield. He doesn't actually address the issue ever. He never addresses the issue of importance. It always comes down to identity.
He
And
will
then
have the he will have the
then
treatment
you've got
himself. Yeah, he will have the
yeah,
treatment.
exactly.
Talk radio as well. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, they all go with the narrative. So then
Yeah.
you've got this the third group, which is meant to be the alternative media, which is basically what the first two groups will call conspiracy theorists. And sometimes these people in the third group play into that role. They play into that role.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And then the fourth group, which is what I consider Windows on the World to be, which is basically looking at things in a rational way, but in a
Yeah.
very deep way, and giving solutions and looking at. But most people aren't interested in that.
No,
They're
that's
more
right, Mark.
interested in, if we were talking about a possible UFO attack in London and we had some intel from some fictitious person, we'd probably have thousands of people listening to this now, right?
Millions probably.
Yeah.
If you mention
Well, War of the
about
Worlds stuff, you know.
yeah,
Orson
yeah,
Welles. Yeah.
yeah. Well, Alex Jones
But-
and all that.
And this is what makes these presentations genuine and authentic.
Mm,
Yeah.
One,
Yeah,
because
that's-
they're live.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's no censorship apart from
No.
watch my bad language, like. But I'd say
Well,
that till we
done pretty
till we're
good so
offline.
far. I mean,
I don't think I've sworn once yet, have I?
No,
no.
Bollocks.
Well, that's it. No, but yeah,
But just going back to that mind virus again, you're completely all right, completely correct. Because everyone, whether you like it or not, every one of us is affected by this virus, by this Mutico.
yeah,
Because it
Well, I think I'd be
holds
constantly
us
vigilant
in your
actually.
mind.
Yeah. Mm,
Yeah, it holds you in your mind, and you're like a pea in a whistle.
mm, mm.
You think you're making choices. You think you've got some level of freedom, but then actually you're confined within that narrow bandwidth of perception.
yeah,
And that's how the spell holds you there. But
Mm.
more importantly, like your gentleman who's the health and safety, I call him the elf from safety.
From that, and they work from the Gnome office. Yeah.
Perfect, right? They're the ones who reinforce the spell.
yeah,
As an example, it could be a supervisor, it could be a manager, it could be whatever. They're the ones who hold. We use each other to contain and maintain the power of the spell within the individual, including yourself.
yeah. Head
Because
teachers, yeah,
if he's or she's projecting fear onto the employee, then someone above he or she is projecting the fear onto her.
Yeah.
And what's the one thing that makes the immune system weak is fear and stress.
that's right, that's
Yes.
right, exactly.
And it's
exactly.
constant. It's constant from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you manage to get your head down at night. Everything is
Yeah,
a
well,
different level of
that's
stress.
why I think you have to be constantly aware. I wouldn't actually even call it vigilance after a while, because at first it's vigilance, then it can become hypervigilance, but then it just becomes awareness. And that's something I've always thought was very, very important to do, because it protects you as well from a lot of negativity. I mean, why that? I mean, sort of real strong negative attacks. I'm talking about demonic stuff, really, which we actually, funny enough, we're going to be talking about tomorrow night with the Jerry Marzinski.
Which we've both experienced personally, Mark. I
That's
don't know
right.
about you guys, but Mark and
Yeah,
myself have spoken about it
yeah.
in the past.
Yes.
And I've seen
Well-
it. And I've
well,
seen with my own eyes, you know?
Yes.
At the beginning of the pandemic, we all have common friends from everywhere in the Facebook. There was this woman. She was married to a good friend of mine. He died sadly, a great musician. She's in Los Angeles, so the propaganda probably over there, it was terrible. Anyway, she started swearing on Facebook. She has a shop. All these people coming here inside without the mask, and I said, so and so, please come on, we need to breathe. She went nuts. You sound like these Trump supporters. You sound like far right.
Yeah,
Exactly what you said.
Or,
They are-
yeah,
yeah,
all the
it's-
usual.
it's-
So, I mean,
Yeah,
when
it's like here. It's like
the enemy's
it's-
defined.
it's
They
like
define
possessed.
the enemy.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's like
Well, they define the enemy.
complete. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So, in other words, if you're not part of the narrative, you're far right, because that sounds naughty, doesn't it?
That's right.
And
Yeah.
then you're a Trump supporter, or you probably think Elvis lives on the dark side of the moon, the usual stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what when I went to Fairborn, Neil, we went there I had information from Niels Axelmorner, the world's leading expert in sea levels, and Fairborn was going to be decommissioned because of rising sea levels, which aren't rising to that
Yeah.
degree that they say. It's absolutely nonsense. So what Fairborn did is they actually dredged away a lot of the coast to make it flood. That's a known fact. So this has been an ongoing thing. So I went down there with the information and did a talk, the village hall. The local Labour Party, Mariana's Labour Party, put a leaflet through every door saying that I'd worked with Ike and that he thought the Queen was a lizard. Well, I don't know what that's got. I didn't work with Ike anyway. I was on a TV station where he was.
Yeah.
But it was a long time ago. So what they do is they go back into your history and try and find anything they can. But the point was that I had the world's leading expert in sea levels who was going to represent those people in court, and those idiots in that local Labour Party completely put off a load of people. We still got 60 people in, but another listener down there, a good friend, he put the talk on. We really stuck our necks out. I drove all the way down there, and they put a leaflet through every door in the thing, and it's got Fairborn can see through windows. Oh, how original, and they basically said that I was charging £12 a head. It was free, right? So that was a lie. We did it for free. We didn't charge them anything on the door because there'd be controversy. And then basically what happened was that I only found out about all this because someone brought in one of the leaflets. They'd put one through every door in the village. 800 houses have been told not to come to the talk. Then the local newspaper, Cambrian Times, phoned me up and said, "Oh, about your talk." I told them everything. I sent them Niels Axel Morner's resignation letter from the IPCC, that's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and that he was calling them out for their fraud, which was anti-scientific and outrageous, and he was resigning. And he was the writer of the sea level chapter in 3 of the AR reports, which are the main reports which the whole world relies upon. Okay? So this is important stuff. So this fella listened to me for about half an hour. And then I'm thinking, well, they might put a headline up, world leading sea level expert offers to represent Fairborn in court over decommissioning. What they actually wrote was, guess what? Protest planned at climate change deniers talk.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
And when they followed it up, there wasn't a protest. So this guy had some mate called Quentin or something. It was like a cartoon.
Quentin Tarantino, yeah.
Not
like
quite.
That.
No, not quite, but just as irritating in a different way. And what happened was he's got a sign trying to stop people going in, but there's just him. So there was no protest. It was one fella. So we said, well, come in if you want. And he goes, I'm not paying to hear your propaganda. I said, well, it's free. And then he ran off. He basically run off, and he said, you people are dangerous. I thought, well, I suppose it is dangerous if you're going to get people who don't want the houses taken off them. I suppose that is dangerous.
It's unbelievable. Honestly, it's incredible, Mark. Yeah, they are not thinking straight at all. But then also I noticed, guys, there's a lot of scaremongering, Neil and Mark, not only on the main narrative like the BBC, ITV News, also some of the conspiracy groups. I don't know. It's like people, they have attraction for anything that is negative and is terrific. And it's horrendous.
Well, I think that's how it's the shock jock thing, isn't it? If I did that, I'd have millions of listeners, and I could do it.
That's right.
I could easily do that.
Yeah.
Because Alex Jones is just an actor. He's an actor. That's what he is. It's like, the whole point is that what he's doing is he's mixing up things that are true with things that are preposterous at the same time, which is propaganda on its own. You see,
he dedicated to Walther's though. Remember?
Well, we did a spoof to see how gullible people were, and I did a joke. I said, Gonzalo, we've got Gonzalo in Walthamstow. It's Alex here. It's Seconds, and we got Marina Abramovich coming down to your place, man. This is off the charts. We got to get there. These people will not win.
People they believe it. Yeah, they believe it completely.
They all started cracking themselves.
You'd have definitely caught me.
Yeah.
No, but ringing you back.
Shane's just put something quite important in. Mark, please explain how you travel without the jabs, tests, masks, and crap, please. Well,
okay.
I left the UK to go to Bulgaria on the 3rd of February. You still only need a PCR test to get into Bulgaria.
Most places,
people will tell you that you need jabs. Read what it actually says. They're now saying that you're going to have a COVID certificate. Well, I don't think that's the case. But when I also went to Asia because I had some family business to deal with out there,
Yeah.
And I believe that they are now asking for vaccination over there, but there's always a way around it.
Yeah.
Do look into it. You can travel. I mean, this is the whole point, that you have to look at what it actually says, not what you're being told it says by the press. That's fair.
Can I just say, Mark? I think I told you I have two good friends of mine, a couple that I teach the kids. They are from Poland. Well, very awake, supposedly. And the husband, both couple, they have a big argument because the husband decided to have the treatment because he wanted to go and see his mom in Poland because he didn't see her for 2 years. This is the problem. So the wife was saying, no, you don't have to have it. Anyway, she stayed in London with the kids. He traveled to Poland by road. He went driving to, he went to Dover. Then in Dover, they only asking lateral flow test. They didn't ask him no COVID passport, nothing. He went to Calais, the same thing. He went to Poland, they didn't ask him for nothing. He told me, you know what, you were right, it's all bullshit. They didn't ask me for anything. Now, my question is, why this guy is actually intelligent guy? Why did he fall for having the bugs? I mean, I just don't get it. But yeah, they didn't ask him for nothing at all. And he had the double one, actually.
Yeah, well,
So
it's not enforced in a lot of countries that people are saying, and you know, they in Bulgaria they did bring in the COVID pass, but the places I go to don't require it. So
yeah,
it's not what people think. They're getting hammered with negative propaganda all the time, which is what we're talking about. So if you have to,
it goes back to the same thing, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's right.
To the
The
spell.
virus. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, someone said about my Alex Jones voice. It's really echoey in here, right? And I don't want to do it too loud, you know. So I was trying to restrain myself, and the cider guy said, "You need to have a few steroids to sound like him." Well, actually, I can roar my head off, but we're trying to keep the conversation to a reasonable level. If I do that, it's just going to go really, really loud. So I'm not going to do it properly, like I know I could.
Like it ended up being the War of the Worlds. Then I mean something like that. But going back to the scaremongering, Neil and Mark, about the mind virus and all that. For example, in one of the Spanish groups, they were saying, all the kind of conspiracy theory groups, that all the activist groups, that in Italy now you're being forced to have the vaccine if you are older than 50. Everyone. So everyone was panicking. Oh, look at this! It's going to happen the same thing in UK. Okay, in one of the Spanish groups, there was an Italian guy speaking perfect Spanish. Please stop saying anyone older than 50 have to have the vaccine in Italy. It's not true. It's bollocks. Please stop sending false information. Now, but the thing is, people they're supposed to be on our side, some of them, it's like they kind of love it, right? It's like sadomasochism or something like that. I just don't understand it. It's the same thing, you know. I don't know if the chemtrails are real. The chemtrails as well is another thing. Like you were saying, Mark, if that guy was saying in California, if the chemtrails, with the chemtrails thing, they should have died by now. Everyone, nothing happened in the end. So this is the problem. It's like human beings, either COVID or chemtrails or whatever, they love scaremongering. I don't know why.
Well, yes, I think what it is because people who come into this information, they start to feel superior because they think that they know something that the public don't know. Then they put it all together into this kind of conglomerate word salad of stuff. So it's everything, you know. Can't you see it's the chemtrails? Can't you see it's the 5G? Can't you see without actually linking anything together properly?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So that's what I would find.
But you must get you must get that all the time, Mark. Where
yes,
and hundreds of people are sending you crap every day because they've convinced themselves that they're more informed than you are.
Well, what I like,
and they were informed just before you are.
They'll go, so why do you not talk about chemtrails then? I said, well, the first show I ever did, was about them. And I know
30 years ago. Where was you?
2013. But I was covering it since about 2008. And I went to the geoengineering conference with David Keith there, which was at Oxford University. And the UN.
But the awareness of chemtrails was around before that, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, the thought that geoengineering.
Geoengineering.
Yes. And to call it chemtrails really diminishes the subject as well, because it starts to sound not credible to people who don't believe it. So I think the whole use of the word chemtrail is not good. Call it what it is: geoengineering. Call it by its proper name to start with, and then you can talk about solar radiation management. Yeah.
How many people in this country are aware of the HARP stations?
Well, probably not many, but
right. So there used to be 3 in this country, and there's only 1 left, and that's in Aberystwyth.
Right. Yes.
And it's there, and it's active, and it's being used all the time. Geoengineering.
Yeah.
Chemtrails was just an add-on, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they do cloud seeding in quite a lot of countries. I mean, it can be a good thing if places need rain, so you can't. What happens is that people who don't know much about anything, they put everything into one bag without knowing anything about it, really. And what I found about the geoengineering, I worked quite a long time talking to people like Max Bliss, who was very, very involved in it. And it was a big thing in the UK in around 2010, because a lot of it was going on. And there was the regulation of geoengineering document, which came out. I featured every patent that I could possibly find on geoengineering in a show, and it was all about chemtrailing. And it was the first show I ever did at the People's Voice TV. So people who jump in, they get to know a little bit of information. All of a sudden, they think you're a shill because you're not talking about something that you've been talking about for 20 years. It's like, what? This is what I mean about this sort of this old media group. It seems to be populated with people who are as narcissistic and egotistical as the people that they are trying to oppose.
Mark, this is the problem that I find. I'm sure you noticed that, Neil. Even if you are doing something far more important, or you know something 100% the facts of something, some people, they might know less than you, but the typical characters. They are the likes, they talk over you, they don't allow you to talk, and they wouldn't listen to the information. Now, I sent Neil to many of the great kind of investigations from Mark regarding the Great Reset, Agenda 21, going back to 2013. Now, there was one Spanish guy said, wow, this guy is amazing. He was investigating that going back to 2014, 2013. I sent it to a lot of groups here in England, Mark, and they don't say nothing. They just go quiet. I don't know if they don't understand it, they are shocked. It's just hard to believe.
I think
you know
it's quite
why.
a lot.
You know why it is? It's
Why?
Because they never came up with it.
That's right. Ego, bloody ego. That's right.
Yeah. So instead of applauding you and saying, fair play to you, well done, they'd rather sit there like mutes and make you feel like what you said was wrong.
Yeah, or not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. Yeah,
it's the same thing as small-mindedness, isn't it? So, in other words, if you're not from the local area, the people in the pub start ignoring you, and basically tell you to go home from where you came from and stuff like. It's the same mentality in this so-called fake truth thing. And it's full of these people who are just it's very narcissistic.
That still goes on now.
Yeah,
that still goes on now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was telling Mark, Neil, there is a particular, is one of kind of my music heroes that I was lucky to be doing somewhere recently. And I told this person, another one is quite narcissistic. I told this person, oh, I got an email from so-and-so, and I called him and everything. Now, it's quite a well-known name. And this person goes, I don't know, what is that? What is that? I mean, it's so obvious. The narcissism.
I think that it's really
name names. Name names.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, a while ago, I did a live stream. It was earlier this year, actually, with Aaron, who we were both getting sort of, I would say, targeted by this complete space cadet called John Overkill. And because if you look me up, it'll go like I'm an actor, right? Now the thing is, I've got an internet movie database page.
Yeah.
So it says actor on it because I was in a few films, but I'm not an actor. I never wanted to do that. I'm a filmmaker. I do make films, right? So the thing is, I spent 25 years with a van and in bands touring around, being basically a singer and performer.
Hold on, I thought 25 years ago you was in them cheap porn films. You didn't stand anywhere. I think it was 6 years old.
Me. It was People are going to say,
Spiky
people are
hair.
going to start believing that, Neil. That's why you
Yeah.
can't say things like that, because they'll actually take it seriously, you know. And
That's a strike.
it's a strike. Well, I don't know whether it'd be a strike. I think you're allowed to say things like that. But the thing is that so these people who smoke far too much dope or take
Yeah.
too many drugs, they put things together in their heads. And then they go, he's an actor. He must be acting all the time. Well, I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing you could possibly come up with, isn't it? It's like, so
Well-
you go, okay, so Oliver Reed goes onto a talk show and he's acting drunk, is he? He's not really drunk. You see what I mean? It's like, it doesn't make any sense. It's just like, what the hell are you talking about, right?
But we were talking about a particular artist, which is very awake,
Yeah.
you know, and suddenly somebody said, remember, Mark, maybe because this person didn't know him or whatever, this person went to Neil, oh, I don't like his music anyway, and he's a fake activist. I mean, you know, it's just complete logical fallacies, Mark. There's no way. I mean,
No.
you know,
That's
people-
why, because it happened again recently. This
Yeah.
Lance Marshall, and it's called Rise Above or something, and they enticed me into making a comment on something. Someone tagged me into something, so I put down my thing about COVID protest social engineers. I think I mentioned this on the last stream.
Yeah.
I won't go into it, but basically, he says he's a known shill. He's on the shills list. What does that? Is that just all the retards who like to talk about the chemtrails, the 5G, and the aliens? Is that what he's talking about? So anyone who doesn't talk about that's on the shills list. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's just it's incredible. Yeah. But yeah, it's people. It's like they love kind of fear mongering, right? They love this kind of fear, and anything that is kind of exaggerated, like aliens or whatever. That's what they love to hear, basically. I mean,
Yeah, there's always been a big market
gossip,
for that.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Well, basically,
It's gossip.
It's like
Gossip,
Coast to
yeah.
Coast, you know, if you listen to like Coast to Coast, George Norrie and all that stuff. I don't listen to anything like that anymore, but he had some quite interesting guests on. But what they always do is they take it beyond the realms of credibility. So they go, what if? Then it becomes Ancient Aliens, the TV series, and ancient astronaut theorists believe. Well, what's an ancient astronaut theorist? There's only a few of those. There's Eric von Daniken, and there's a few other people who were talking about this stuff, but it demeans the subject. It just demeans the subject to such a degree that it cartoons it into anything. And of course, a lot of this stuff is easy to debunk from the other side. So what you need to do is be able to prove your point and argue it like you're in a court. Otherwise, don't do it. That's always been my view of it, you see, which is why a lot of people don't like to confront or even look at what I'm putting out, because it's factual. They can't pick holes in it. You know, you could say, well, maybe you've got that wrong. So, well, I don't think I have. Let's have a look at this. It was like that lawyer who said, you know, using the Magna Carta, said that's not going to work.
Yeah.
She actually responded to it all, that woman. And then I said, what you are saying is basically wrong. And she said, I'm a lawyer. I said, but lawyers are often wrong. Lawyers are often wrong.
Exactly.
Okay?
They're indoctrinated.
They don't know any more than most people. They've had some training, and they know about statute and basically how to apply the law, but they don't know that much. I mean, I've worked with lawyers in court cases, and they go, "Oh, thanks for that. Thanks for that." You end up doing all the bloody work for them, you know.
Exactly. It's the same thing in the music business. Many great musicians that I know, I mean, many of them, they never been interested about the facts regarding climate change, regarding COVID, regarding the pandemic. You explained it well. I know many people that work in hospitals, and they're telling me since day one, since March 2020, the hospitals were nearly empty. And they go, really? Well, yeah, man. Because they are the whole day listening to the propaganda, BBC, Sky, ITV, etc., etc. If we were the whole day listening to the BBC, imagine cases. I mean, it's just unbelievable, quite frankly.
So, Neil, you're in touch with people on a daily basis, and you know you're encountering the mind virus. So, I'm not as much as you. So, tell us what's happening.
I had a conversation with a guy yesterday on a job, right? And he got 2 young children, masked up, vaccinated. So every day I meet someone, and the conversation will start. So this is another classic example, and I've had this conversation with many people, right? And the first thing I say to him is, "Do you trust your government?" No, do I? Fuck. I've never trusted them. And I
Okay.
never
That was your first swear word, by
I
the
said,
way.
okay. We've only been on 10 minutes.
Well, it's been an
So-
hour and 9 minutes, actually. So you did quite well, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair play to me. So anyway, I said, so answer me this question. When Matt Hancock stands at the rostrum on BBC at 5 o'clock or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and he tells the people of Great Britain to wear a mask or do this or do that, why do you listen to him then? Well, I don't know. I said, well, answer me this question. If Matt Hancock was walking down the street and you were walking with your 2 children, one in each hand, and he stopped you and he said, excuse me, put your mask on. And I think you should put a mask on your 2 children as well. What would you say to him? Well, the answer is the same answer every time. You can go do one.
Yeah.
I said, so why then, when he stood with Chris Whitty at the rostrum on BBC, telling you what to do, why do you think that is? Well, it's the government, but you don't trust your government. I know, but I said, I'll tell you exactly why. I said, it's television programming.
That's right.
It's part of the hypnosis. It's the hypnosis. They hypnotize people into
That's right.
compliance.
Yeah.
I think
And-
it's
and
really
you could
good to be able to
see-
give...
You could see the shutters lifting on most of their eyes. You know, some people just go further deep inward, but the majority of them realize. And I firmly believe that is the way and the only way that we're going to turn this around. By this
Neil,
level of awareness.
the other day, I told Mark, I bumped into a musician. He's a friend of mine. This guy is the kind of guy didn't have a healthy life, right? Like a lot of musicians, they did that and the other thing, you know, whatever, they smoked dope, marijuana, or even worse than that. Okay. So he used to tell me himself about they killed John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the pharmaceutical companies, they want to exploit us, they don't care about us, blah, blah, blah. But of course, he's left wing. I was going to give him a hug, and he goes, oh, brother, I wish to give you a hug, but it's better to be safe. And I said to him, do you realize for 2 years, I never wore a mask, I never had no treatment, I hugged people, I met so many people in the protests, playing live, how come I'm still here? Well, I'd rather be safe. And he told me, well, I have the treatment, and now I now know that I'm not going to die. Look at the answer. It's just complete gone, man. It's just so there's no point
Well,
for me.
I think it's not the post-truth world anymore. It's the post-truth world.
Yeah, that's right. Yes,
I think it's another level because facts don't matter. Opinions and belief drive everything. And that was, somebody put something about Amitai Etzioni and demos and communitarianism in it. Thanks for that. I think I've seen that on his channel.
Yeah.
Amitai Etzioni is the sort of granddaddy of communitarianism. And he's at Washington University, Columbia University. It's on my website anyway. If you look up communitarianism and Windows on the World, there's a nice short article on there about it, which explains it.
Yeah.
So have a look at that. It's quite useful. But yeah, that's interesting because Demos actually did say, they're really pushing the communitarian hive mind, and Demos is a think tank, public policy think tank, and we have debated with them
It's
actually.
everywhere.
Yes, but
It's everywhere.
Demos is merely just another agent of that, but they are quite an important one because they directly link with the Tavistock Institute. And basically, they said that
grassroots.
That's it. Yeah, that's right. The colour revolution stuff, the spontaneous George Soros type activism. Yeah. And
Sigmund Freud, etc. Yeah, that's what they read as well.
Yes, that's right. That's what they call the Tavistock Institute, Freud's dressing room, or as I call him, Sigmund Freud. Yeah, and so basically, they said that the new democracy.
Or Carl Not So Young.
That's it.
That's a good one, definitely.
Yeah. They said that the new democracy will work with a combination of government open infiltration and citizens groups taking direct action. That tells you everything you need to know about how you have been steered through the activism and through implementation of communitarianism to keep everything within the narrow corridor of accepted opinion. And anyone outside it is demonized. There's nothing to it.
Yeah, that's right.
So we can talk about the wider view, which I really like, about the, because part of the stuff that I do talk about is parapsychology, for want of a better word, but I think parapsychology sums it up very well, because that's the study of psychic phenomena within a scientific framework. And the people that I admire who did that were people like Charles Tart in the 1960s, and his explorations into experimentation through human awareness and the ability to be able to use these now shut down abilities like clairvoyance, clairaudience, all the rest of the stuff, which is basically, and prophecy, which is a really interesting one, when you're able to have these prophetic and predictable dreams that predict, basically. And you know, a bit tired here actually, but those are really important, because the problem with this stuff is that people are so compartmentalized now. Once you say anything that may sound a little bit esoteric to them, they will go, oh, that sounds a bit like David Icke or something. You see what I mean? That's the way it's worked. Right. So in other words, people like Icke haven't helped at all, in my view, because what he's done is he lumped a load of stuff together, which people now no longer take seriously. And I get constantly demonized because my name was associated with him through the People's Voice. And so that's what they did to me in Wales. They'll continue to shut you down with anything they've got. But the point is, it doesn't have to make any sense. It's about what sticks. But carry on, Neil. Sorry.
Yeah.
That wasn't all the Welsh's fault, Mike, right?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
But no. just taking it back a step. We are conditioned into believing we got 5 senses, right? All you were talking about, the clairvoyance, clairaudience, blah 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 blah. They all form part of the 4 other senses that we have suppressed in us from the day we were born. There are actually 9 senses, but we are led to believe there's only 5. So that's part of the suppression from an early age to prevent you from developing as a spiritual being.
That's right.
You're held confined within them 5 senses all your life.
Yeah, and I think it goes down to something even much more simpler than that, Neil. It goes down to Henry Ford's idea of, wanting a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers, because when we talk about the industrialized age, they needed people who were going to work machinery and do very kind of monotonous sort of work in a lot of ways. So they trained people to not think outside. And that's clearly stated in all of the goals of education. If you listen to, as I said earlier, John Taylor Gatto's stuff's very good on this. And he was an award-winning teacher in New York. But the whole point is that now we're in the post-industrial world, because from the Lima Declaration onwards, like you were saying about the coal mines and everything else being shut down, the West has been deindustrialized. The Lima Declaration, which is through the UN Agenda 21 goals, which were really getting underway by 1975, through the Lima Declaration, was basically about the transference of manufacturing to the East and the destruction of it in the West. And that's exactly what people like Brzezinski were saying. That's what Maurice Strong was saying. Isn't it our duty to bring about this collapse so that we can bring in this new system? So now what you've got is this deindustrialization, and people are being trained in a different way. They're being trained in a way to accept this fake environmentalism as a religion. They're being trained to accept the digital security age and constant surveillance, of course. So it has changed education. But what I find quite shocking is that people who seem to be born around 1980 don't seem to be able to have a lot of sort of critical thinking skills that were available before. I'm not saying all of them. I'm not saying all of them at all, but it's a general trend, definitely.
Yeah. And
that ties in exactly to the time that we've been talking about. But just to take it a step further with the 4 senses that we are not allowed to even talk about or think about, they are all the senses that you reach inside for the answers to the big questions that you need when you're faced with the challenges as you go through your life. But instead, we're encouraged to go out externally to ourselves, as in a smartphone or the internet or whatever it may be, when it's all we've got to do is stand still,
navigator,
reach within ourselves and start reconnecting to what we were actually born with.
Yeah.
And for the men of the country, what the men of this country need to do is let's reach down between your legs and rediscover that pair of bollocks you were born with. And maybe then we'll have a better, stronger resistance in this country.
Exactly.
Instead
I
of
think it's down to,
no, you get the what can I do? So
Yeah.
it is, isn't it? So it is. No, it's how it is because we've allowed it to become like it is.
That's right, Neil. How many people? I'm sure you both encountering that we thought they were awake. Well, I hate that we're awake, but we know they were on the same wavelength like us. They didn't know. They knew there was no deadly virus. They knew there was no pandemic. They all go and have the double dose of vaccine. It doesn't make any sense at all. But I think 20 years ago, this wouldn't happen. I'm not having. I got friends like they call it millennials, yeah, born between 1980 and 1990. Some just very small minority. They are very, very intelligent and they know what's going on. Majority, they are very arrogant and they are not prepared to question anything the narrative said to them. So it's exactly what you said, Mark and Neil. This is the problem.
So I had a conversation with a guy the other day.
Hang on.
Sorry, Mark.
It's all right. Someone's just put in, I was born in 79.
Okay.
And people around that age seem to be quite good. Yeah, I didn't want to generalize about that.
No, of course.
It's just, I think it's a general trend in the education system and the teaching.
All right, it was the end of 1979. It was.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it was 1990.
Yeah. That's quite a good year, actually.
People just take things specifically, don't they? We're having an open discussion.
No.
People just need to take things
as
we are discussing them.
Yeah. One thing that does kind of annoy me sometimes is when people accuse you of something you haven't done or said.
Yeah,
because
that's right.
That happened a few weeks ago when you were saying about the debt collector and someone said, hopelessly wrong. Well, it wasn't. I listened back to it. But what I'd done is I said when a debt's transferred, it started off and finished in exactly the right place. But then you get people, they were sending me all that stuff about that lawyer we were talking about. Well, she's rubbish anyway, as far as I'm concerned, because she's giving people wrong information.
These people who want to latch on to a negative statement, a wrong date, or some technical information, if they think they can do better and be better at it, then develop your own foundation and platform.
That's right.
You lead the way for us. You show us. You tell us what we should know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
because
the thing is that
what you have done, you took your balls in your hands years ago.
Yeah,
right?
years ago.
And you went on your own path. And for that, you should be applauded. But instead, people just want to hit, pick, and pull you down from the success of just being the individual autonomous researcher and journalist you have been.
Yeah,
and
because basically... have you been to my gigs then? I'm actually really good sometimes.
There was me and the roadie.
I did some quite good gigs. I did a rugby club down in South Wales, and it was a really good night actually. I was. I
bet it was. They always are.
It was good down there. It was good down there, but it was crazy in those days.
That's been stopped now.
What
fun?
Yeah. Like most of them, that's the problem. Yeah, exactly.
Anything that we enjoy, right? And this is I'll never forget the first Bojo. That first night he told that first lie. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And that was the first time I'd ever heard the word inalienable. I'd never heard it before.
Inalienable rights.
And I made and I made a note of that. And he said that night, tonight I am going to remove the British man and woman's inalienable right to have a pint with their mates on a Friday night. Yeah. And that's what he said. You find me back. And that's what he's done. Yeah. Anything that gives anyone a little bit of joy has been taken away. And we've all stood back and allowed it to happen. We've enabled it. We've enabled that behavior. They told us what they're going to do. The mind virus kicks in and everyone complies.
Yeah, as I've always said, I think the public are the biggest problem. I don't think it's even the people doing it. It is the public who are the problem. You know, but
we are the problem, but we're also the solution.
Yes, of course. I mean, I'm actually finding this really interesting. I'm finding this very interesting because it's the first time in history that this has happened in this way. They're bringing in a whole new system, which is basically a cull of most of the population, because the renewables will only work with a population reduction of 70%. And if you think about it like this is all practically thought out. There is nothing conspiratorial or off the wall about this stuff. It's a business plan for the world, which was decided a long time ago by people who, in my opinion, do not have the authority or the knowledge to do that, because they're not a proper priest class. They're a bunch of technocrats and billionaires. And that's what's happened. So basically, when you say things like the British government are not able to do anything about this, they're going along with it, then people go, but we got to get rid of Boris. What, you can get Keir Starmer in? I mean, see how that changes things. Yeah, just let's see how that changes things.
Far worse.
Yeah.
That's
oh
right.
My
yeah.
God. Oh my God.
Like it happened.
And here we go again. Yeah. Another loop on the revolution wheel.
Yeah.
Bullshit and lies. Deception, and the only people that suffer are us again, the working class.
Someone's put Mark performing in some backstreet sweaty sausage festival. I've never done a sausage festival. I've done beer festivals which serve sausages, though. We did the Battersea Beer Festival, and I think our bass player, I picked him up from Walthamstow to go to the beer festival in Battersea, and he was completely off his face. So we're driving round I think it was the Elephant and Castle roundabout. We went round it 4 times because he was throwing up. He basically opened the door of the car and was throwing up. He says, keep going round. These cars, everyone was looking, you know. And it was brilliant. And I think that was the night. Oh, it was a different night, actually, with Tony Blackburn and David Hamilton. And he had gout in his foot. Yeah, very, very funny thing, because he nicked David Hamilton and Tony Blackburn's champagne bucket out of their dressing room because he had gout in his foot, and they came in and he's got his foot in their champagne.
Yes, you know? Yes.
Yeah.
Drink up, boys.
Yeah, absolutely hilarious stuff, you know. But the thing is that I did enjoy doing that. It was great fun, actually. I never wanted to sort of make it a career. I just did it because it was a living, you know, and it was popular, and that's how we met, wasn't it? You know, I mean,
that's right. Yeah, Canadian House in Trafalgar Square, Mark. I think we have Paul Whiffen on guitars and David Stark on drums. So it was great fun, actually. Yeah, but that's the other thing. They're closing down venues, they're closing down pubs, they destroy the music business. The other day, I read the post of a friend on Facebook, which she believes the narrative, right? She believes the climate change, the pandemic. She was complaining, she's a music teacher, but she goes, it's appalling that the Musicians Union, they are advising music teachers maybe to look for other careers because they wanna take out of the schools music lessons for children. I don't know still what's the reason, but maybe short of staff or whatever. It's just, you know, but they can see in front of their eyes, but they allow it. This is the stupid thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of this goes down to self-awareness, and I don't think that you can carry on with putting up with this stuff if you've got this awareness and you've learned. I mean, I don't want to keep going around in circles, but it's something I've been looking at for such a long time. So when I looked into it, it was pretty horrifying. But now I'm just saying, well, that's the reality of it, you know. And it's not negative and it's not positive. It just is. So people tend to go, oh, it's negative. Well, you know, the new age thing is like anything that's not narcissistic and self-referencing and fake hugs and BS is negative. Well, I don't think it is. I think truth is very positive, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to see, but I think they get very disturbed when you speak the truth to people, Mark. This is what they don't like it at all. That's the main problem, actually.
Yes, I think that is the problem. I think it's when you put it down to, okay, in the biodiversity assessment of 1995, they're asking for a reduction in world population down to 1 billion. And then you can hear people talking in the street saying there's too many people in the world. And then you say, well, why do you think then that there isn't a plan to get rid of 70% of the world's population? They go, they wouldn't do that. I said, it's written in the document.
Exactly.
I can show you the documents where it's written. But and then they go, oh, don't be so negative.
They're not hiding it. But it's classic again, because they then go on the defensive and then attack.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
cognitive dissonance, Neil. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, their mind cannot accept the truth. It will
No.
not accept the truth. It
That's right,
refuses
yeah.
to accept it.
Yeah. Or one of their
Yeah, it's
heroes,
interesting.
you kind of prove to them, well, this person is a shield or whatever, and they go, they go really offended if you were kind of offending their own mother or their own father. It's just, it's crazy, man.
Which is why I don't get involved in any of that stuff, because I've always just put information out, and it's, as I say, it's a lifelong research project which I'm sharing with the public. So if they don't like it, they don't have to listen to it. But most of it is very useful to people.
Go and listen to the BBC.
Yeah, ITV.
And I think that it is quite good to get those definitions of the different types of media. I thought that was a very good thing to do on that show, because I've been meaning to do it for a while. Because it does need to be pointed out, because I always found that to be the problem. And that's why I don't do interviews anymore, because most of these people, I know what they think, I know what they're going to say. Apart from people like Jerry, we're actually, Jerry Marzinski, we're exploring something that I do know about and he knows about in a very broad way. And that to me is quite revolutionary stuff, what we're doing there. But a lot of the stuff just going on, there are some great commentators out there. I mean, I think, that there are people who describe the system very well. I think Catherine Austin Fitz does it very good from the financial point of view. There's a few others who are able to look at it objectively, but unless you join the dots completely,
it's impossible.
And she does to a great extent, that those are the people that I like, the people who lay it out properly, concisely and clearly,
Yeah, that's
Whereas
right.
I find a lot of this stuff, it just waffles, which is why I didn't really want to get involved in doing these streams, because I thought, well, I don't want to just go on there and talk. All right, that's what we're doing. But I'm always focused on making good points and bringing in solutions. Otherwise, there's no point doing it to me,
Yeah, trying to show people what's going on and find solutions.
I've just realised the time, Mark, so I'm going to have to sign off soon. So I got that.
Great, well, that's good. We've done a good an hour and a half. Yeah,
it was really
Somebody
good.
Just said, how do you rate Alison McDowell? And I think, some of her stuff's good, but she doesn't join the dots to the bigger picture, in my opinion. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Excellent.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed what we've done tonight, guys.
Me too.
It's great to finally speak to you.
It's great to see you.
I'll plug this book right before I go.
Yep.
Columbus.
We can see that.
And the Cannibals.
Jack Forbes.
Columbus and the Cannibals, Jack D. Forbes.
Mm-hmm.
This is a mind blower, because this brings you through the 1800s, 1900s into present day, more or less, to have a better understanding of how they've used that virus against us, to manage humanity.
Well, that's really great to get a proper timeline of all that.
I was going to ask something before you go, Neil. I was telling Mark, I saw the Spanish mainstream media. There are probably just nonsense. There's a few doctors, scientifics from Spain that they used to work in the World Health Organization. These are mainstream media in Spain and the Daily Mail. They're saying the pandemic could finish in just a few months. Do you think they're trying to dangle in the carrot, like coercing more people to get the treatment, or it is, but maybe the whole thing might collapse? What do you think, Neil, yourself?
Well, the way that I would apply that straight away, right? One, because he's coming from a government, via the media, is, and the philosophy that I apply, although it's tongue in cheek, if they told me the world was round, I would consider it to be square. So whatever it's classic inversion. So I invert everything back the other way.
Yeah, I think that's a very good thing to do at this period in history, because it's very simple what's being done. There's nothing complicated about this system.
It's not.
It's overwhelming in its size, because people don't understand globalism. They think small, the globalists think big. That's all there is to it. And the globalists need the anti-globalists to implement their politics.
That's right.
The public never understand that either. So the people who are implementing the climate change agenda are those that believe it. So basically, just because it's not true what these people are saying to these people, they've conditioned them in such a way that they are totally unable to think outside this perspective, because it's been sold to them as a religion. Robert Mueller came into the UN, the undersecretary in the 70s, and I've got the documents. Go to the free books page at winnersontheworld.net and download those two documents from Robert Mueller, and you'll be quite shocked. I'm going to do some more shows on that. There's the Cult of Gaia, which you can look at on the in the articles section, in the latest shows section, I think on the front page of Windows on the World. And look at that, because that tells you how this was manufactured. It was manufactured as a religion, the Gaia religion. And
As
the
a
New
cult.
Age ties into that. So the people who think they're opposing it are also going along with it. That's right. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Unknowingly.
Am I missing the chips and the fish? Someone said. I do miss fish and chips, and I'll tell you what I really miss is really spicy food. You know, like a good, a decent curry down Brick Lane, and being able to get really good spices. I can get chilies here, which is great. I can get ginger here and fresh fruit and veg, but I do miss the more spicy element of food. Yes, it's a little bit of.
We'll send you some.
Yes.
I send you some Spanish food, Mark, definitely as well.
I brought over some curry powder, actually, proper garam masala stuff with everything in it for my friends here. But you can actually get it. You just have to look around for it, you know.
Yeah.
But that's a kind of trivial side issue. But what you can get here is fresh spring water. There's springs everywhere.
You've got to have spice.
Yeah, you've got to have the spice of life, definitely. You know, I mean, I put chili on everything, you know, including my breakfast. So. Yeah. Mark, what's your opinion of Nazara Gazara? I haven't really got an opinion on that.
Gazara. Maybe Barney, our friend, knows about that, right?
Is that the space aliens who are going to give us loads of money?
Just have a chat with Charlie. He'll tell you.
Charlie Ward,
yeah. I mean, he's like something out of a comedy, but he isn't funny, you know.
Yeah, but Charlie, you can imagine him and Alex Jones on the same set, can't you? Having a chat.
Well, yeah, you could do, but I mean, the BS would
imagine that ego battle.
Yeah. But what?
Listen, I'm going to sign off now, guys. Right?
Okay, no problem. Lovely to see you, Neil.
Yeah, let's do this again, even if you just catch up on our own.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thanks guys.
Thanks, Neil.
Okay, take care.
Cheers then. Yeah, nice, bye. I'll take you out.
Bye.
Great. Yeah, well, that was very interesting, wasn't it, tonight? And I think we're keeping up the energy, even when I'm quite tired doing these things. I think we always come up with some interesting stuff, and hopefully people have enjoyed it and get something out of it. Otherwise, there would be little point in doing it. So, yeah, we're going to do some more of these. I've got a show tomorrow with Jerry Mozinski, which should be about 8 p.m. UK time. I've got them written down here, actually. I've got quite a few coming up, so I might as well let you know about those. Yes, tomorrow night, Jerry Mozinski. We'll be having Jerry Mozinski on tomorrow night, 8 p.m. We're going to be exploring a lot more about the negative voices which affect certain people, and they affect everyone in a smaller or greater way. And we're going to be looking at the patterns, not only the patterns, but also the outcomes, actual case studies tomorrow night, case studies of Jerry, and a very interesting and disturbing case of something that happened recently, which we're going to get into tomorrow. And that is very helpful for people to know about. I think on Tuesday, I've got another one. Hang on a minute. Here they are. They're on this bit of paper. Yes, on Tuesday, I've got Steve, who's actually introduced us to Library and Odyssey. And he's in Australia. So we're going to get some news from Australia on Tuesday.
Great.
And then I've got Casey Whalen on Monday, North Idaho Exposed. This is the true face of people reversing the Saul Alinsky rules for radicals back on their local councils. And Casey's been doing it. I did several interviews with Casey and with Ammon Bundy. And Ammon Bundy is obviously from the Bundy family and the Bundy Ranch standoff, which was all Agenda 21, trying to take their ranch in Nevada. And they've fought back. They got 1,000 people down there, and the feds backed off. And of course, he's extreme right wing and he's all the rest of it, but he's standing up for his rights, which happens if you stand up for your rights, you're extremely right wing now.
That's right.
So we've got, and with Casey on Monday, there's also Vicky Davis of the technocratictyranny.com, and she's great. She knows all about how systems work. And we've done many shows with Vicky, but not for a long time. So just to let you know about them. And if anybody wants to come on the show, let me know. If you want to do a live stream with us, just get in touch, because these are just casual conversations during the week, which obviously goes somewhere. And we have a Discord server. So our Discord server is available on the homepage at windowsontheworld.net. So please join us on Discord. And our Sunday shows go out live 9:30 p.m. every Sunday at windowsontheworld.net. And then they're uploaded to our Odyssey channel. We do not upload our Sunday shows to YouTube. So go to the homepage at Windows on the World. You get the link for Odyssey, which is where we put all of our shows now, on Spreaker, which is where the whole archive of Sunday shows is, and the website, which has got everything we've ever done. So if you want to learn some stuff about Agenda 21, the origins of it, the back catalogue, and our successes and what's gone on over the years, do have a look at that. And you'll find everything in there from esoteric Freemasonry, the different belief systems, many different and complex issues are covered on the website. So I think that's all I've got to say. Have you got anything you want to say before we sign off, Gonzalo?
No, that's people keep on being optimistic and hopefully making our own societies, business, trying to find solutions. And whatever they want to do, I think if you stand your ground, there's nothing they can do. You can still travel. The most is a PCR test. You don't need the vaccine to travel most places so far. But it's a way. It's just a matter to be very strong-minded and have a very strong personality. Stick to your faith and your guns, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that the associations with those who are in a healthy mind, and by that I mean people who know what's going on.
Yeah.
Because being surrounded by these compliant people is extremely depressing.
It's very difficult. Yeah, it's very difficult. They believe everything, the climate change, the whole propaganda, but they know themselves. They can see that it's not going anywhere anyway. So they thought in a few months
it's going somewhere, and it's going somewhere that they don't know about, and they've got a huge amount of denial about what is coming, and they don't want to know about it anyway. So that's the fork in the road that I talked about with Stephen and Evan Strong, and it does go back into these prophecies. We're going to sign off in a minute, but we talked about the fork in the road that was earlier on this year, that basically people go one way or the other. If they're going to go along with this, then that is their choice, and it is a choice. It's still a choice. So
that's right.
You have to sort of stay strong with it, really. Thanks a lot, everybody, for that and some interesting comments. And see you soon. I'll be on Live with Jerry, 8 p.m. on the same platforms tomorrow night. Then it will obviously be on Odyssey, and it'll probably be uploaded to Spreaker as well. So do join us on Spreaker. We have a lot of people listening on there now. So thanks. I have to keep going over that information because people still ask me. They'd still ask me, where can I find your stuff? You know.
Okay.
Great. Thanks a lot, everybody. That was great.
Good night. See you. Thank you.